Good art is copy and great art is steal. In 1973, the Xerox Alto was a large computer that actually featured a graphical user interface, which was the first computer to ever introduce that. It also had what you see is what you get. So starting off with the graphical user interface, it's what you would commonly see today on any computer, where you can interact with icons on your screen, move them around on the desktop, things of that nature. What you see is what you get is also where you can see actually what you have on the screen, you can print it out and have it in the physical world. So that was a huge step in the computing industry. This was highly advanced for the time. 4 years later, Apple's Apple II, which was their flagship computer, was completely text-based. So that was a huge difference between these two computers on what they could do power-wise. The Xerox Alto was nearly $100,000 at the time of its release, though, so it was more of a commercial-based computer. It wasn't anything that Xerox was necessarily trying to push and get to the mass market, whereas the Apple II was more of a computer that met that need. In 1979, Steve Jobs had convinced Xerox to allow him into Xerox PARC in exchange for $1 million worth of pre-IPO Apple stocks. This was a huge deal because Xerox had been working on a lot of computer technology, but they were more focused on how they could print and how they could make money off of this. And Steve Jobs had seen an opportunity to possibly get a look at what was going on behind the doors in Xerox, which Xerox later said they only really allowed him to see a little bit. But Steve Jobs was able to create a huge vision of what this could create for the computer world. This was highly significant at the time because this later on introduced computers like the Macintosh and the Lisa, of course, which was before the Macintosh. This was a huge advance in technology, but it took someone who was able to look at what was going on in another company and actually take that and turn it into a greater vision. I want to use this video to point out exactly why the Lisa computer was a failure, but not only that, what it was used to create a massive vision in Steve Jobs' life and how he used this to propel Apple forward in the future. The Lisa computer was the first computer to commercially offer the graphical user interface. Along with the what you see is what you get was another feature on the computer which was highly significant. So not only did you have your graphical user interface, it was compatible with all sorts of printers, floppy disk drives, and a bunch of other things that could have been upgraded on it, such as upgradable RAM, which was highly significant because Apple later on moved to a closed system, which is more seen especially in a lot of today's products by them, although there is some exceptions, but a majority of them are closed products. So this was still one that could be upgraded, and having significant options like upgrading your RAM and stuff was a huge bonus, especially at the time. The Lisa computer had its own office suite, which was really advanced at the time. This was before Microsoft even ever actually had Microsoft Office. So this was something that the average user would not have even had contact with any of this type of stuff. It didn't feature a PowerPoint, but it literally had everything else that you would have seen in a Microsoft Office at the time. And this was before it was ever even thought of. This was really advanced, and something like this was really groundbreaking in the computer world. But of course, with its lack of sales and everything, it never really gained a bunch of traction just because of these types of applications, especially with users not really being as sure what they could actually use them for and how they could benefit from them. One of the largest things that it featured was protected memory, which actually never later showed up in Apple products until 18 years later in the Macintosh. This was a huge advancement at the time. This allowed processes to be prevented from accessing memory that they weren't granted to. So if you had something like a virus on your computer, it would actually prevent it from accessing other places that it did not have permission to. No other computer actually featured this at the time, and this was a huge advancement, but it was kind of just moved along in history at the time. It's not something being as significant, especially with viruses not being necessarily something to be as worried about at the time. But of course, now today, this is a standard feature on every computer. The Lisa computer was just so expensive that it wasn't really reasonable for most users to really want to purchase it. Having the astronomical high price point, as well as the fact that it had poor marketing adapted to the Lisa computer, a lot of it later on favored the Macintosh, and they promoted the Macintosh as actually a better performing computer, which was really not the fact. The Lisa outperformed most IBM computers and the Macintosh in almost all aspects. The Macintosh only later benefited from a little bit cheaper RAM and things like that helped progress it a little bit over the Lisa in some aspects. But the Lisa was really dominant, and it had a lot more innovations than the Macintosh actually had. The Lisa was also plagued by returns and software issues and failures, where it just really ended up not making a whole lot of money because users were taking it back, and then they were giving credit, and they ended up just trying to promote other products out of it and give them credit towards different products, which really left the Lisa in a strange place where it was having these failures. And a huge piece of this had to do with the fact, too, that the Lisa couldn't actually write software for itself. So there really was not going to be any more new innovations or anything else by a third-party software that was going to be introduced onto the Lisa computer. It was really limited mostly to what it already had, and there wasn't going to be a significant chain down the line of introducing new software and improvements to the Lisa computer. I consider Steve Jobs to be one of the most inspirational and innovative entrepreneurs that I've seen, especially one of the more recent ones in our lifetime. He was able to take something and create a massive vision with it. And I think that it's really important, especially in the self-help field, is to learn and study these types of people, and especially learn from their failures. So with the Lisa computer being a huge failure, and later on more products from Apple being a failure, which I'm going to continue on in this series with, it really led up to Steve Jobs learning a lot and advancing so much, where later on he created some of the largest and most influential products that we see in our everyday life. Almost all computer or technology, a lot of it that you interact with, was actually spawned out of the innovation of Apple, which a lot of it came from Steve Jobs. So when you see a lot of even your normal tablets, anything like that, you look back at where it actually came from. Steve Jobs innovating the iPad, Steve Jobs innovating the iPhone. A lot of this stuff ended up where almost a large portion of the technology was based on stuff that he had a huge part in. And I think that when you learn and study about someone like this, you can really learn how to create a massive vision for your life and see where you can take not only something where maybe everyone else is skipping past it, like Xerox was. You can take it and create it into some big life purpose and a huge passion that really makes a huge impact and a change in the world. I think that Steve Jobs has an incredible amount of innovation, and it's something really worth studying. I want to add this into a multi-part series, so this isn't going to just be the only part of Steve Jobs that I cover. So if you guys do enjoy the video, make sure you guys hit like and subscribe, because I'll be having more, and I'm going to have a bit more to this series. And if this goes well, I might consider doing a bit more research on other types of big influential figures and doing a really high in-depth research and just bringing ways of where you can use their life to improve your own. And I think that that's highly important in this type of industry, to learn from people that have created great lives, and you can learn how to create a great one for yourself. So anyway, if you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a comment below. Let me know some feedback on the video, what you'd like to see in the future. I'm still going to be doing other self-help videos, and I'm kind of been in a phase for myself where I've been trying to create a vision for this channel and kind of seeing where I want to go with it. So this is kind of where I'm just kind of getting a touch of maybe something I might be interested in and pursuing in the future with it or not. But anyway, I'd love to hear your feedback down below. Thanks, and have a great day.